To my grandson, if one day you feel something watching you, but see nothing, trust your instincts. I didn't, and it nearly cost me everything. They say the forest keeps its secrets, that if you walk deep enough, it'll whisper things you were never meant to hear. I didn't believe that, until the day the tiger came out of the mist. I left my home that morning expecting silence, maybe peace. What I found was something ancient, something that only survives and tests those who dare stand before it. The fog was thicker than usual, folding over the hills like slow smoke from a fire no one could find. The sky hung low, colorless, pressing down on the forest as if the world had stopped breathing. I stood on the porch of my old stone cabin, with a hand around my tin coffee cup, feeling the heat more than tasting the drink. Vaco lay at my feet, tail twitching, nose up. He hadn't barked, but his ears were pinned forward, alert. It made my neck tighten. That dog didn't spook easy. The birds were silent. The chickens refused to leave the coop. Still, I told myself it was just the weather, just the fog. I had built that cabin with my own hands 40 years earlier, and in all that time, I'd never feared the woods. That morning, though, I paused before stepping off the porch. Something in the air was wrong. It was the kind of wrong you can't see, only feel, like the way your stomach drops right before an accident. I shook it off, as old men do, blaming it on dreams or bones or both. I needed to check the fence near the creek where the wild pigs had been rooting. Vaco followed without command, but he kept looking behind us, like something might be following. We moved slow through the woods. My knees don't like downhill anymore, and the fog made the roots invisible beneath the leaves. The only sound was the creak of my boots and the soft crunch of Vaco's paws. It was the kind of quiet that hums, where silence gets so loud you start hearing things. At one point I could swear I heard something breathing, but it was gone before I could place it. The path narrowed near the stream, and that's when I saw them. The marks. 3 deep grooves across the trunk of an alder tree. Fresh, high off the ground. Too high for boar, too deep for bear. I stopped walking. I stared at those claw marks like they were a message. And they were. Just not for me. Not yet. I stepped closer, ran my fingers over the bark. It was torn in long, clean slashes, sap still wet like blood. Vaco was growling low now. I could feel the vibration in my bones. He never growled without meaning it. Then I caught the smell, sharp, musky, bitter. I'd spent enough time hunting in my youth to recognize the scent of a predator, but it wasn't familiar. Not quite, not local. I turned slowly, eyes scanning the trees. Still nothing, still quiet, but my gut told me we were no longer alone. I told myself to turn back, but I didn't. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was something deeper, something calling. I moved toward the broken section of fence, heart racing, fingers twitching near the handle of my blade. The forest grew denser here, older, the fog thicker, like it didn't want to let go of what it was hiding. My breath sounded too loud. Vaco stopped walking, braced his legs, and let out a whimper that turned into a bark. He was staring into the fog ahead, into nothing as far as I could see. But then I heard it, the crunch of leaves, slow, deliberate, heavy. I froze. Whatever it was circling. I couldn't see it, but I felt it, like a weight behind my ribs. I took a step back, then another. The fog shifted slightly, parting for a second like curtains in a slow wind, and for just a breath I saw it. 2 golden eyes low to the ground, wide, fixed. I blinked. They were gone. I felt sick. Not just afraid, sick, like the world had tilted under my feet. I whispered to Vaco, tried to pull him back, but he wouldn't move. His tail was down, his teeth bared, he was shaking. That's when I knew we were being hunted. I turned. I didn't run. I couldn't. My legs didn't belong to me anymore. Every step was heavy, every sound magnified. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. Vaco stuck close, glancing behind us every few seconds. I didn't dare look back. The woods had gone dead again. No wind, no birds, not even the usual creaking of the trees. It felt like holding your breath before a scream. When we reached the edge of the clearing, I thought maybe we were safe. Maybe it was just my mind playing tricks. But I was wrong. The forest doesn't play. The next moment came like lightning, no warning, just violence. I heard the growl behind me a fraction of a second before Vaco lunged. He didn't hesitate, didn't think. He just threw himself between me and the thing that crashed from the underbrush. I turned and saw it, a tiger, enormous, muscles rippling under soaked fur, leaping like a flame through fog. It hit Vaco mid-air, claws extended. I screamed. The sound didn't feel like mine. It felt like something torn out of me. I reached for my knife, barely able to focus. My dog was screaming. So was I. Time bent. Everything slowed. I saw fur and blood and teeth. The tiger's eyes locked on mine, not wild, not confused, but cold. It knew what it was doing. It didn't kill for panic. It killed with purpose. I saw its body twist toward me, fluid and brutal, jaws open wide. My hand closed on the knife hilt. I didn't feel brave. I didn't feel strong. I just knew I couldn't let it end there. Not for me, not for Vaco. Not without trying. And as the beast lunged again, I raised the blade, heart pounding, unsure if this moment would be my last. The tiger's weight slammed into me like a falling tree. I hit the ground hard, the air crushed from my lungs, my ribs screaming. The knife slipped from my hand in the impact, gone in the wet leaves. Its paw struck my shoulder with terrifying force, claws tearing into flesh like paper. My vision blurred with pain, and hot blood poured down my chest. I tried to scream, but only gurgled. Its face was inches from mine, breath hot, foul, metallic. The eyes weren't wild. They were calm, intelligent. It wasn't killing in rage. It was testing me, deciding. I punched it, useless. My fists felt like feathers against that mountain of muscle. It didn't even flinch. It lowered its head to my neck, breath vibrating across my skin. I could feel the weight of its jaw preparing to clamp down. A death measured by instinct, no hesitation. Just one final breath before the end. That's when I remembered something. Something small but sharp. The broken antler I'd kept tucked into my belt, a souvenir from a hunt years ago. I didn't think. I reached, pulled, drove it upward with everything I had. The shard pierced soft flesh just behind the tiger's jaw. It shrieked, not a roar, but a high, painful, almost human sound. It recoiled fast, pulling back, the antler still lodged in its face. I scrambled sideways, blood soaking my shirt, body screaming. My arm was nearly useless, the shoulder torn deep. But I rolled, pushed, crawled. The tiger circled. I could feel its fury now. No longer testing, now it was punishment. I looked around for the knife. It gleamed 2 meters away. Too far, too slow. But I went for it. The moment I reached it, I felt the breath again, behind me. I spun, knife in hand, just in time to meet the tiger's eyes. It leapt again. I raised the blade. We collided. I stabbed blindly, felt it sink into muscle. The tiger roared, this time loud enough to shake the trees. We rolled. Leaves flew. I don't know how many times I struck. I just kept moving, stabbing, screaming, crying. It clawed my side, bit my forearm, yanked me like a rag. The pain was beyond pain. It was electric, alive, burning through my nerves. Somewhere in the chaos, I saw Vaco again. He was trying to stand, bleeding, broken but alive. He barked, a dry, hoarse sound, and limped toward the tiger, teeth bared. The beast turned, distracted, giving me the second I needed. I drove the knife hard into its throat. It thrashed, pawed at me, caught my leg and ripped it open from thigh to shin. But it stumbled back, hacking, blood spraying in arcs. I collapsed again, barely conscious. My world was pain, red and white and nothing else. I tasted earth, heard wind, thought it was the end. But the tiger didn't finish me. It stood, swaying, looked at me, looked at Vaco. It was bleeding badly now. foam and red dripping from its mouth. I expected rage. What I saw was respect, or something close to it. It turned, limped into the trees, disappeared. The silence that followed felt wrong, not peace, but aftermath. I tried to sit up, failed. My leg was torn open, my shoulder shredded, my hands shaking. I looked at Vaco. He collapsed beside me. His chest rose and fell, barely. I whispered his name, again and again. The cold began to seep in. I was losing blood fast. My vision flickered. The knife lay beside me, soaked red. I thought about crawling. The cabin was so far, too far. I reached for Vaco and rested my hand on his fur. He licked my fingers. We lay like that, two broken things in the dirt, surrounded by fallen leaves and the fading scent of the tiger. I thought of my daughter, of my grandson, of the face of my wife, long gone. I wondered if they'd find me, if they'd believe what happened, or just see the claw marks and guess. I don't know how long I lay there. Minutes? Hours? The pain changed and became duller, heavier. My thoughts slowed. I began to drift. But then I heard something. Voices. Human voices. Distant. Calling. I tried to shout, but it came out as a whisper. Still, they came. Two men from the village, David and Luca, hunters who had followed the gunshot sounds they'd heard from the cliffs. They saw the blood, the trail, then us. David dropped to his knees. Luca yelled something, I don't remember what. Warm hands, heat packs, rope stretchers. I blacked out as they carried me. The last thing I saw was Vaco being lifted into someone's arms, his eyes half closed but alive. Alive. That was enough. I let go, and the forest swallowed me in darkness once more, but not in death. Not yet. There was more to come. More pain, more reckoning. But in that moment, I had survived what no man should. I had looked into the eyes of the tiger, and it had let me go. I woke to the slow beep of a heart monitor and the sting of light through my eyelids. The smell of antiseptic was thick in the air, foreign after the raw scent of the forest. My body wasn't mine. Tubes ran from my arms. My chest was bandaged tight and pain lived everywhere, a quiet, constant scream beneath the surface. My leg was in traction, my right arm completely immobilized. I couldn't move my neck without wincing, but I was alive, and Vaco was alive too. They told me that before I could even ask. The dog made it, one nurse whispered, as if that alone would keep me breathing. The first time I saw myself in the mirror, I had to sit down. There were stitches across my cheek, a deep line from shoulder to sternum. My thigh looked like something had tried to unzip it from the inside. I didn't cry, not then. I just stared, trying to find the man beneath the ruin. My hands shook. My skin looked waxy, thinner. I looked like a man who had died and come back wrong. The doctors called it a miracle, said no one should have survived wounds like that, said the tiger must have hesitated. But they didn't see its eyes. It didn't hesitate. It chose. The nights were the worst. Every time I closed my eyes, the forest came back, the fog, the silence, the sound of breath behind me. I would jolt awake soaked in sweat, heart racing, gripping the side of the bed like it might leap at me. Nurses started turning off the lights early, speaking softer, walking lighter. I wasn't just healing, I was hiding. Even the smallest noises, a door creaking, a chair scraping, sent me straight into panic. And always, in the corner of the room, I saw those golden eyes waiting, just outside the reach of the lamplight. They brought Vaco in one afternoon, weeks later. He limped badly, his belly shaved and stitched, one eye half shut. But when he saw me, his tail moved. Just once. I broke then. Not from pain, from love, from the fact that he had stood between me and that monster without a second thought. The nurses let him stay an hour. He put his head on my good leg and sighed. I ran my fingers through his fur and told him I was sorry. Again and again. I told him I should have listened, I should have known. But animals don't keep grudges, only humans do that. The investigators came later, of course, rangers, wildlife officials. They walked the land, Set up cameras. Found the marks on the tree, the blood on the ground, but no tiger, no trail, no prints. They found nothing. "Are you sure it wasn't a bear?" they asked. I didn't answer. Let them think what they wanted. But it wasn't a bear, and it didn't run. It vanished because it chose to, and that was the part that haunted me most, that it could have finished me easily and didn't, not out of mercy, something else. The months crawled. I left the hospital in a wheelchair, stitched and pinned together like a broken doll. My daughter came to stay with me, moved me into her home near Tbilisi. Everything was bright and noisy there, too far from the fog, too far from the quiet. I missed it. The danger, the stillness, the honesty of the forest. People asked what had happened, and I told them it was a wild animal, an attack. They nodded and gave me space. No one wanted the details, except one man, a hunter who had once tracked leopards near the border. He looked at my scars and said, "That wasn't a wild kill. That was a warning." I stopped sleeping through the night. Every sound outside the house made me sit up. Some nights I walked to the window, certain I'd see stripes in the shadows, but there was never anything there, only the wind. Still, I felt it, a presence, like the tiger had left a part of itself inside me, not in body, but in breath. Sometimes I'd wake with my heart hammering, convinced it had returned, that it had unfinished business. Other times I'd feel almost calm, like it was protecting me, like the rules of my life had changed, and I had stepped into something older than fear. One morning, weeks after I started walking again, I found something strange at my daughter's doorstep. A large paw print, clear in the mud. Too large for a dog, too defined for fantasy. I didn't call anyone, didn't panic. I stood over it a long time. It hadn't rained in days. There were no other prints, just one, as if to say, I was here. I felt no threat, only a chill. The forest had come to remind me. I hadn't been chosen by accident. I had been marked. And now I carried that mark everywhere. People asked me if I forgave the animal, if I hated it, if I'd kill it given the chance. I never answered with words. But in my chest, I knew. It'd given me something no man ever wants, the chance to die and still come back. It hadn't spared me out of pity. It had tested me, and I had survived. That made me different, changed. The tiger didn't just leave me wounded. It left me awake. Now when I close my eyes, I don't see a monster. I see a mirror, and I wonder what it saw in me that made it stop. A year has passed. The seasons rolled over me like waves, spring blooming over winter's wreckage, and then summer, hot and green and endless. My body still remembers the pain. The limp in my leg never went away. My shoulder aches when the rain comes, but the scars that matter most aren't on my skin. They're in the silence between moments, when the house is quiet and I catch myself listening for something I can't explain. I left my daughter's place after 6 months. Too much noise, too much safety. I needed to go back to the woods, back to where it happened. I rebuilt the cabin with the help of 2 friends, replaced the blood-stained door, repaired the fence, hung Vaco's collar above the hearth, a reminder of what loyalty looks like when death is real and time is short. He passed not long after the hospital, peacefully in his sleep, with my hand on his fur. That broke something in me I'm not sure I've recovered from. But I keep his name close. I whisper it when the forest gets too quiet. The new dog doesn't understand it yet. Maybe someday she will. Her name is Maya. She's young, clumsy. Not a guardian. Not yet. I've stopped trying to explain what happened that day. People believe what they want. They like their monsters far away, in books and documentaries, but I know better. I've seen what lives in the hush of the trees, in the corners of the world where man doesn't matter. The tiger wasn't evil. It wasn't insane. It was exactly what it was meant to be. A question written in flesh and instinct, and when it met me, I was the answer, just barely enough to be left alive, not spared, not chosen, just measured and kept. The villagers started calling me the old survivor. They mean it kindly, but it doesn't sit right. I didn't survive because I was brave. I survived because something ancient decided I could, and now I live with that choice. I walk the edge of the forest every morning, coffee in hand, boots heavy with dew. I leave raw meat near the ridge, not as bait, as offering, as respect. And sometimes the meat is gone by dawn, no prints, no sound, just absence. As if something had accepted it, silently, without needing to be seen. One morning not long ago, I walked beyond the ridge. The fog had returned, thick, silver, curling around the trees like smoke from old prayers. I didn't bring the knife, didn't bring the dog. I walked alone, letting the woods swallow my steps. It felt different this time, and not hostile, not safe either, just honest. I stopped near the creek. The water ran slow and the rocks were slick, and then I saw it, a single paw print in the mud, deep, clean, facing me. Not crossing, not passing through, facing me. I stood there a long time. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. There was no fear, only stillness. The kind of stillness you feel in temples. I whispered, "Thank you." I'm not sure to what. The print wasn't fresh, maybe a day old, but it hadn't rained. I could see every ridge, every toe. I reached down and placed my hand beside it. My fingers didn't match the size, not even close. I smiled. Not because I felt safe, but because I felt seen. The forest hadn't forgotten me, and neither had the tiger. That night I dreamed of it. Not of the attack, not of blood or screams. Just its eyes, watching, calm, eternal. But this time I wasn't on the ground, I was standing, and it wasn't hunting, it was waiting. I stepped closer. In the dream it didn't move, and neither did I. We just looked at each other, predator and prey, man and myth, survivor and judge. And for the first time I felt no weight in my chest, only quiet, only truth. I woke up crying, not from fear, from release, from understanding. There are things in this world that exist outside our rules, things older than hate, older than gods. They do not ask permission, they do not offer mercy, they are. And when they meet you, they leave something behind. Not a curse, not a gift, just a question that never stops echoing. Why did I live? I've stopped trying to answer it. Now, I just carry it with me, like a stone in my pocket, like a name carved into bone, not a burden, a reminder. I've started guiding again, only a few people each year, quiet ones, people who don't ask stupid questions. I take them through the edge of the forest. I tell them to listen, not look, to breathe slow, to respect every silence. I don't tell them my story unless they ask, and even then, I keep some parts mine, because some stories aren't meant to be told, they're meant to be felt, to be carried. That day, the tiger didn't just leave scars on my skin, it carved something deeper, a truth I carry in every step. The forest is not ours, it never was, and when it speaks with teeth,